Welcome to the Headley Highlight Show's Headley Headspace. And this headspace is called, How Old Do You Think Your Child Needs to Be Before They Start to Learn Sex Education at School? Or wherever they are schooled. Now, before I jump straight into that headspace, I want to say thank you to everyone who's listening to my show this evening and who's checking it out on the replay. Thank you for your listening ears. And all those people who have been supporting me throughout my period as a broadcaster, commentator, all-round chatty individual. I am working very hard to increase my YouTube subscription, so please do bop over to YouTube and look for DeniseHeadley.com and select subscribe. But when you do subscribe, can you select the all section? Because then you'll get everything I upload, darling, and you wouldn't want to miss anything, would you? Of course you wouldn't. At the moment, I have 1,678 subscribers. I'm trying to get to 1,700 subscribers. So that's just 2 more. So why don't you be the person that takes me over the precipice, darling, into the space where I can then start asking to focus on 1,740 and all those numbers in between. You can make a donation to the show, which is mostly appreciated because all of this content comes to you every week. It's originally created. It takes a lot of time, and believe you me, people, sometimes it's like, oh, Denise, are you going to make it this week? But I do each week with the zeal and gusto of a presenter as I am. So yes, do please make a donation. I am very partial to 3 rings and chips and a Miranda, or you may want to buy me a whole Bitcoin. I'm happy with fiat as well as cryptocurrencies, tokens, all those different types of things. Right, now that I've done that massive preamble, not forgetting that you can go to my website also, which is DeniseHeadley.com, and also the show is replayed. It goes out on X every Friday at 8 p.m, and you can catch that on the replay. So now that I've done that really exhaustive preamble, let's jump straight into this headspace. My opening question was, how old does your child need to be, in your opinion, before they start to have sex education at school or wherever they are schooled? And the context to this is that Bridget Phillipson is proposing that children under 9 are able to be taught sex education in schools. There used to be a ban, and she's proposing moving the ban. Under new guidance from the Department for Education, it waters down the Conservative Party's proposals, which used to say to schools not to teach children earlier than 5 years old about particular subjects, including porn and sexual assault. The revised rules now recommend kids aren't taught about sexual activities until their last 2 years of primary school. It leaves schools up and down the country the option as to when they decide that they think it's appropriate or necessary. Miss Phillipson said that the reason, or part of the rationale, was so that children could be equipped to defy malign forces that exist online. That's somewhat backward. Wouldn't you be combating the forces that exist online, as opposed to saying to children at a certain point in their life, now is the time for you to receive sex education, and that could be at a very young age, under 9 for argument's sake. Under this new proposed removal of the ban, parents will have the right to view their school's curriculum materials, and I think that's very important, and that's been welcomed by a charity called Parent Kind. Now, the reason I think this is an important subject is because the question around sex education in schools has been debated, because not everybody goes to similar types of schools, because there's religious schools and there's obviously homeschooled schools, or children who are schooled at home. And I'm wondering how this is going to work with those people's ideas about when is age appropriate for their children to learn certain conversations and topics. In addition to the question around children who are homeschooled and have religious schools or a religious background, I wonder about the wider question about when sex education is appropriate for children to start learning at school. If I think back to when my children were at primary and secondary school, there was a conversation about sex education, but that came at the very last part of their school year. So just before they go to secondary school, I think that was when they started to bring in conversations around sex education. And I do understand that by the time the school or the educator is bringing those topics to the children in a curriculum form, most children have been overexposed to sexual images or sexual content, not just online, but potentially shared in other places. So I see the topic having lots of areas of nuance in and around how it's looked at. I think there's an element of me that wants a nostalgic view, even though I've brought up my own children and they're now young adults. I think there's that element of me that doesn't want to have the schools or educators having to spend not inordinate amounts of time, but introducing topics early on that don't necessarily need to be brought in at that stage. But the other side of me also understands that we live in a hugely sexualized society where so many women specifically suffer from sexual assault. As far as I'm concerned, this country and many of the Western countries, they have got epidemics of misogyny, women being assaulted, touched unnecessarily, that the whole thing, the fact that we had MeToo was not seen as, it was an important element of cultural commentary, because essentially it was saying that lots of women are experiencing similar outcomes when it comes to predatory male behavior. So I do think if you're able to identify that at an early age and the school does provide a forum, that's a good thing. But I'm also worried about the time at when that's done, and the role of parents as well in when that conversation should be brought to the child's attention. And like I said early on, what happens if you go to a religious school? How do you then bring that in for people who are under 9 within a religious context? Are those educators going to do that? What about those people who homeschool? When are they gonna feel that it's appropriate in a certain way for their children to be have that conversation about sex education, and do they think it's under 9, and who's going to enforce that anyway in that space? So I think I don't necessarily know if it was a good idea what the Labour Party has done. I think the wider question is about the sexualization of our children. That to me is a bigger area of political activity I would have liked to have seen them address. However, that's a huge remit for a government, especially one that's so unpopular as this. It's probably way easier to say, look, okay, well then let's tackle it at an end of the spectrum where we can at least see that we're going to be impactful, because I don't see the likes of Keir Starmer being able to negotiate with Mr. Elon Musk or Mr. Zuckerberg or the chap who owns OpenAI. I doubt it, because, let's face it, he's just a speck when it comes to those conversations. So I think the Labour Party is doing something about what they can do something about. But for me, being nostalgic, I would like to see children under 9 not having any sex education. I would like to see it be very age appropriate when it's being done. But I know I'm being nostalgic, and I know I'm also being, not being real in the real world. If I was being completely real, you'd probably have it at a very young age, because we got so many predators in our community, I'm sorry to say, who prey on young people, prey on children. So, I'm kind of torn in a way, and I probably haven't given the best overall conversation on the item, but I don't know. What do you think? When do you think is an appropriate time for children to be taught sex education at school? Do you agree with the Labour Party removing the ban for under 9s? Or are you like where I am, seeing one side of the story? You can see the benefit of it, and also the other side of the story, you can see the benefit of it. And, maybe you're not fully committed to one place or the other. So I don't know. So give me your thoughts, give me your 2 pence, your 3 cedis, or your declining dollar price. Yes, it's going down in value. I hope you enjoyed it. Jump up in the comments, make a contribution at deniseheadley.com. Jump over to my YouTube and make a contribution there. And I'm not going to be at the show this next week because I'm having the weekend off, because I'm having a very short break. So I'm not going to be there this Friday coming, but I'll be back the Friday after that. I'll tell you more about that later. Anyway, hope you enjoyed it. Speak to you soon and cut.